I look in the Western Conference, and it's 4 teams right now that all have the same record: Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Utah, and the LA Clippers, all with a record of 42-30. How do you see this thing playing out, and could you possibly see these teams kind of jockeying a little bit about who to escape in the first round, possibly?
Yeah, 100%. I can't remember a year, Kirk, where it was this loaded in the bottom 4. It's funny because I'm still living near Sacramento, and Kings fans in that neck of the woods were hoping to get in. And it's just incredible how, they've had a good year, but now that gap, because they're in 9th and they don't have a prayer anymore of getting into the group that you talked about. But the idea that you could be 8th one day and 5th the next is pretty unique at this point in the season. And the jostling is going to be real because, Warriors and Denver being at the top of that group, you don't want to see them. I think that, honestly, Houston unofficially is in that group. So, if there's jostling to be had, I think it's, just trying to avoid those top 3 and see what you can do from there. But, it should be fun down the stretch.
How do we look at the Eastern Conference now? Because, look, Indiana's at 4. We saw the Sixers at 3. That series the game against Boston, like I mentioned the other day. When you look at this Eastern Conference playoff, especially without LeBron James this year, is it still that top-heavy 4 teams and just the bottom 4 is not as strong as we would say the West?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I've been loving the Eastern side of things at the top, like you said. I mean, that Philly-Boston game was big, the Toronto-Milwaukee matchups. I told somebody yesterday, I said the fun thing about the second round in the East is going to be that it's most likely it's going to feel like 2 conference finals at the same time. You know what I mean? Because those are, all 4 of those squads are conference finals worthy. You've got to drop off from there. Indiana's had a great year, but with the injuries, I think I give them a ton of credit for being so plucky and continuing to win games. But I think certainly in a playoff atmosphere, they're going to have a challenging time. And you saw that even with their loss against the Warriors the other night, just being overmatched. But it should be fun because I don't know. I had Milwaukee at the top of that totem pole for a while, and the injuries to them are tough. Malcolm Brogdon goes down, Nikola Mirotic goes down, and those guys will be back in terms of, either early in the playoffs or at some point. But those are big blows. And then Toronto keeps rolling. Philly's got a good thing going. I mean, the way they've been putting their pieces together lately with Jimmy Butler closing games and Joel being dominant. So it should be a good time.
He's Sam Amick, the Athletic senior NBA writer, joined the Rich Eisen show. And you said the word that always gets me going. Me as a Northern California boy, as a Warriors fan, I know you wrote about them in one of your latest pieces. How should we look at this Warriors team? You mentioned, are they still the team to be feared? They added Boogie Cousins. It's that point in the year right now where they could care less where they're almost seated at or how they finish. It's about the playoffs for them. But how do you see this Warriors dynasty after winning the back-to-back championships? How do you see them as they approach the playoffs?
I just think they're puzzling and fascinating at the same time. They're playing at a fairly high level, but then they keep dropping games occasionally that make you scratch your head. Shouldn't be too shocking because of, you mentioned DeMarcus. Like, that's just a really major piece to integrate and continue to learn about in terms of the context of the talent they have and Steve Kerr's system. And then you have different things that have jammed them up. Kevin Durant being out for a couple games with an ankle, DeMarcus getting a chance to shine during that time. They still have these lapses about once a week. And so, like I wrote about, I don't think the invincibility kind of perception is there anymore. Markieff Morris, I love talking to Markieff, obviously, Thunder Reserve. I mean, shout out to the guys coming off the bench who just, I mean, he's a pretty real dude, and he came strong with his commentary. And a lot of times it's the guys that are not as high profile that are willing to kind of give you the real. And he said flat out, like, I think they're more beatable with DeMarcus than they were without. And he talked about the personal dynamics and the fact that outside looking in for him, a lot of this stuff seems to be somewhat personal, somewhat real, whether it's the Draymond, Kevin Durant saga from however many months ago, the uncertainty of Kevin's free agency and what that does to kind of the mood in the room. All of those things for their rivals, I think, represent some level of hope.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.